The Sunday morning air in Palm Bay was thick with the kind of humidity that makes silk cling to your skin, but I didn't mind. At 80 years old, I'd learned to love the sticky embrace of coastal Florida. It reminded me I was still alive. Still feeling, still here. I was in my garden. The one Louie and I had planted together 43 years ago. When we first moved into this house on Magnolia Drive, my silver shears caught the light as I trimmed the lavender that grew, wild and purple along the stone pathway. The scent filled the air, mingling with jasmine and the distant salt of the ocean 3 miles away. My hands were steadier than most 40-year-olds I knew. Architecture taught you precision. 50 years of drafting blueprints, measuring angles, calculating load-bearing walls, all of that trained your hands to be instruments of exactness. And life? Well, life taught you patience. I was wearing my favorite linen dress, cream-colored with delicate embroidery along the collar. Even in my garden, I believed in maintaining certain standards. Louis used to laugh at me, finding me in full makeup and jewelry just to plant tomatoes. "Baby?" he'd say, that deep voice rumbling with amusement. "Who you getting dressed up for?" "The Rosemary." For myself, I'd reply, kissing his cheek. I dress for myself, Louis Moreau. Always have, always will. God, I miss that man. 3 years gone, and some mornings I still reached for him in bed. Still brewed 2 cups of coffee instead of 1. My phone buzzed against the wrought iron patio table. It's interrupting my thoughts. I set down the shears and picked it up, expecting maybe a text from my sister Diane. Or perhaps my book club reminding me about Tuesday's meeting. But it was from Daniel. "My son, my only child. Hey, Mom, we moved into your beach house. Hope you don't mind. We'll just stay a while." I stared at the screen, waiting for my eyes to correct what they were seeing. I read it again. Then a third time. "We moved into your beach house. Not can we. Not would you mind if. Just we moved in past tense, done deal, like I was some distant landlord who'd forgotten I owned property. Like that house was just another asset in a portfolio. Not the cathedral Louis and I had built with our own hands, our own money, our own dreams." My heart began doing that thing it had been doing lately, beating too fast, too hard, like a drum chorus marching through my chest. Dr. Patel had warned me about stress. "Mrs. Morrow," he'd said at my last appointment, adjusting his glasses, "your heart is strong, but you need to avoid unnecessary agitation." I took a slow breath, counted to 10 in French. Louis had taught me that trick decades ago during a particularly difficult client meeting. Undo. Toi, ... Then I called Daniel. It rang once, twice, 3 times. 4, voicemail. I called again immediately. 5 rings this time. Then his voice slightly breathless. "Mom, hey, listen, I can't really talk right now. Daniel." I kept my voice level, but there was steel underneath. Architects learn to build with steel. "What do you mean you moved in?" I heard voices in the background, Trina's laugh, high and performative, the kind of laugh that made me tired. Music playing. The clink of glasses. "Mom, relax. You weren't using it. The place was just sitting there collecting dust. Trina and I needed space, our condo's being renovated. And it seemed like a waste to have that beautiful house empty when a waste." I repeated the words slowly, tasting its bitterness. "You know what I mean? Look, we'll take good care of it. We've already started making some improvements. Yay, just little updates here and there. Modernizing. You'll love it, I promise. Listen, I really gotta go. We have people over in Daniel Marcus Morrow." I used his full name the way I had when he was 7 and had broken Mrs. Chen's window with a baseball. "You moved into my home without asking my permission." A pause. In that pause, I heard everything: his defensiveness rising, his guilt stirring, his wife probably giving him signals from across the room. "Mom, don't make this into a thing. It's not a big deal. We'll talk about it later, okay? I promise." I gotta go. The line went dead. I sat there in my garden, surrounded by the lavender Louis and I had planted from seeds we'd brought back from Provence, holding my phone like it was evidence at a crime scene. The stems I'd been holding were crushed in my other palm. their scent sharp and almost bitter now, like disappointment. A thing. He'd called it a thing. That house wasn't a thing. It was the place where Louis proposed to me on a moonlit beach in 1967, dropping to one knee in the sand with a ring he'd saved 2 years to buy. It was the place where we'd spent our honeymoon. Two young black kids from Atlanta who'd barely seen the ocean, staying up all night, listening to waves and making promises about the life we'd build together. It was the place where Louis had drawn his first architectural sketch on a napkin at 2 a.m., vision blazing in his eyes, and I'd said, "Let's do it. Let's build our own firm." It was the place where we'd celebrated every anniversary, every success, every triumph over a world that hadn't wanted to make room for a black woman architect and her husband. It was the place where I'd held Louis in our bedroom as cancer took him. His last words whispered against my ear. "You're the strongest thing I ever built, Celeste. Don't you ever forget that." It was the place where I'd scattered his ashes from the balcony at sunrise, watching them catch the light and drift out over the water he'd loved. And my son, who Louis and I had sacrificed everything to give a better life, had just moved in like it was an Airbnb, with his wife who posted everything on Instagram, with their friends and their champagne and their careless, entitled ease. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting slightly. The garden swam a little, and I steadied myself against the table. Louis's voice echoed in my memory, that deep rumble that had been my North Star for 50 years. "Celeste, baby, never let nobody steal your peace. You built it. You guard it. You hear me?" I heard him. I went inside, poured myself a glass of water, and sat at my kitchen table, the one Louis had made by hand from reclaimed wood in 1979. I looked at my phone again, at Daniel's text still glowing on the screen. "Hope you don't mind. Oh, my son. My beautiful, foolish son. You have no idea what you've just done, but you're going to learn." I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan Louis had installed himself, watching the shadows spin and spin, my mind running through scenarios like I was back at my drafting table, calculating angles and stresses and breaking points. By Monday morning, I'd made my decision. James arrived at 9 sharp, as he had every Monday for the past 5 years. James was 62, a former Marine with silver hair and the kind of quiet competence that made you feel safe. After Louis died, my sister Diane had insisted I hire a driver. "Celeste, you're 80 years old and you drive like you're being chased by the police," she'd said. "Get a driver before you kill somebody." James had become more than a driver. He was my friend, my protector, and lately my voice of reason. He took one look at my face when I came out to the car and said, "Where are we going, Miss Celeste? And should I be worried?" "Palm Bay," I said, settling into the back seat with my purse and my dignity. "The beach house." He started the engine. "Daniel's text? You know about that?" Mrs. Chen from next door mentioned she saw something on Facebook. Trina posted pictures. Course she did. Trina posted pictures of her breakfast. The woman documented her life like she was preparing evidence for her own importance. "Did you see them?" I asked. James met my eyes in the rearview mirror. "I did. And, Miss Celeste, you sure you want to do this? Might just make things worse. Family matters. They can get complicated." I looked out the window at the palm trees sliding past, at the Spanish moss hanging like grief from the old oaks. "James, things are already worse. I'm just going to see exactly how much worse." He nodded and turned onto the highway, heading south toward the coast. The drive took 45 minutes. James played Thelonious Monk. He knew my taste and didn't try to make conversation. I was grateful. I needed the silence to prepare myself, to gather my strength, to remember who I was. Celeste Josephine Moreau, née Barrett, born 1945 in Atlanta, Georgia, to a seamstress mother and a Pullman porter father who taught me that dignity wasn't something you waited for the world to give. It was something you carried in your line. I carried in your spine. First black woman to graduate from the Georgia Institute of Technology's School of Architecture in 1967. Met Louis Morrow at a NAACP meeting where he was giving a speech about economic empowerment. Married him 6 months later in a small church ceremony that my mother cried through with joy. Built the Morrow and Morrow architecture firm in 1970 with a $5,000 loan and a dream. Designed my first house in 1972. Won my first award in 1974. By 1985, we'd designed half the beachfront properties in Palm Bay. Each one a testament to what Black excellence looked like when you refused to accept limitations. I was not some forgetful old woman whose property could be borrowed like a sweater. I was Celeste Morrow, and I had built empires from blueprint paper and determination. As we turned onto Ocean Boulevard, my breath caught. Even after all these years, seeing the ocean made my heart expand. The Atlantic stretched endlessly, glittering like scattered diamonds under the late morning sun. And there it was. The house came into view, and my chest constricted. Louis and I had designed it in 1978, working late into countless nights at our drafting tables. 2 cups of coffee always within reach. Jazz playing low on the stereo. We'd wanted something that felt like it grew from the beach itself. Organic, graceful, powerful. 3 stories of glass and driftwood and indigenous stone. Perched on the dune like a pearl on velvet, every angle had been deliberate. Every window framed the ocean like fine art. The wraparound veranda caught the sunrise and sunset. The foundation was engineered to withstand Category 5 hurricanes. Louis had insisted on that after Hurricane Camille devastated the Gulf Coast. We build things that last, he'd said, drawing another support beam with his precise hand. That's our legacy, Celeste. We build things that endure. But something was wrong. The shutters. Those beautiful white shutters Louis had chosen because they reminded him of sails against the sky. Crisp and hopeful and clean. They were gone. In their place were gray ones, a flat, lifeless gray that made the house look like it was in mourning. "Oh no," I whispered. James slowed the car, and I heard him draw on a breath. "Miss Celeste, ... I see it." He parked in the circular driveway, the one where Louis had taught Daniel to ride a bike, running alongside him, shouting encouragement until Daniel got his balance and Louis's face split with pride. I sat in the car for a moment, steadying myself. I could hear music coming from inside, laughter, the sounds of people who felt entitled to joy in a space they hadn't earned. "You want me to come with you?" James asked. "Now wait here. I won't be long, Miss Celeste. If you need me, I know." "James, thank you." I stepped out of the car, adjusted my silk scarf, the Hermes one Louis had bought me in Paris on our 30th anniversary, and walked up the stone path. Louis had laid these stones himself, every single one. In the summer of 1979, when we were still young enough to believe our backs would never hurt. We'd spent weekends choosing and placing each stone, creating a path that curved gently toward the front door, like an invitation. Now that path felt like it led to betrayal. The front door was propped open, my beautiful hand-carved mahogany door that had cost a fortune and been worth every penny, propped open like it was a college dorm room. I could see straight through to the living room, and what I saw made my stomach turn. I stepped inside. The living room was unrecognizable. The tea-coffee table Louis had brought back from a trip to Ghana in 1982 gone. The vintage Eames chairs we'd saved up for in the 70s gone. The framed prints we'd collected over decades, Romari Bearden's The Block, Jacob Lawrence's Migration series, Elizabeth Catlett's Sharecropper, all gone. In their place, enormous flat-screen TVs mounted on every wall. Leather furniture that looked like it came from a mall. Neon signs. One actually said "Beach Vibes" only in pink cursive. My ancestral shrine to black art and history had been turned into a sports bar. And there, sprawled across my vintage Italian sofa, the one Louis and I had shipped from Milan in 1985, was Trina. My daughter-in-law, 38 years old, wearing yoga pants that cost more than my first car and a cropped tank top that showed her perfectly toned midriff, blonde highlights catching the light. A glass of champagne in one hand, her phone in the other. 2 women I didn't recognize sat with her, all of them laughing at something on someone's screen. When she saw me, her face lit up like I was a surprise guest at a party I'd been specifically uninvited to. Oh, Celeste? Oh my God, you made it. She stood, setting down her champagne, arms opening wide. We were just saying we should totally invite you down. Were you? Were you really? I smiled not warmly, but I smiled and accepted her air kisses that didn't touch my cheeks. I hope you don't mind, she continued, her voice that particular pitch of enthusiastic that always rang false to me. We've been doing some updates. Just modernizing a bit, you know? Making it more ... us. Making it more us. I walked slowly through the living room, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor that Louis had refinished 3 times over 40 years, each time with his own hands on his knees, applying stain with the patience of a painter. I touched the wall where his favorite painting had hung, a watercolor of Palm Bay at sunrise that a local artist had created for us as a wedding gift. It had hung in that exact spot for 43 years. Now there was a metal sign that said, "Good vibes only," in neon lettering. Where is Daniel? My voice came out quieter than I intended. He's out back taking a work call. You want me to grab him? No need. I continued walking, cataloging the damage. The Persian rug Louis's mother had given us gone. The bookshelf full of first editions cleared out. The vintage record player replaced by some kind of Bluetooth speaker. Oh, Trina followed me, champagne in hand. And Celeste, we meant to tell you we had to change the locks. You know, for security. But we can totally get you a key if you want to visit. Just let us know ahead of time so we can tidy up and stuff. I stopped walking, turned to face her, changed the locks. I repeated. Yeah. I mean, we didn't know who else had keys. And with all our stuff here now, we just wanted to be safe. You know? You totally understand, right? Behind her, her friends had gone quiet, sensing something in the air. And where? I asked, my voice still quiet, still controlled, are my husband's things? The paintings? The furniture? Oh. Trina waved her hand dismissively. We put all that old stuff in storage. Don't worry, it's totally safe. We just needed to make room for our things. I mean, this is going to be our home for a while. So we wanted it to feel like, ours. Our home, our things, ours. I looked at this woman who'd married my son 5 years ago and had been slowly, methodically trying to renovate me out of his life ever since. Who'd suggested Daniel was too close to his mother. Who posted pictures on social media labeling everything ours as if she'd built it herself. Who was now standing in my house, in my living room, drinking champagne from my bar, wearing yoga pants that probably cost what Louis and I used to make in a week, telling me my husband's legacy was old stuff in storage, something crystallized in that moment, something cold and clear and absolutely certain. I see, I said softly. The sliding glass door opened and Daniel appeared. My son, 52 years old now, but I could still see the little boy who used to sit on this very porch drawing pictures while Louis grilled fish and I read paperbacks with my feet in the sand. He saw me and froze, phone still in his hand. Mom, hey. He shoved the phone in his pocket. Didn't know you were coming. Didn't think I needed permission, I said. But apparently, I was wrong. He glanced at Trina, who gave him a look I couldn't quite read but had seen before, a look that said, handle this. Mom, come on. Don't make this into a thing. That word again. Thing. A thing. I nodded slowly. You moved into my home without asking. Changed the locks. Repainted my shutters. Threw out your father's belongings. Put his art in storage like it was junk. And I'm making this into a thing. We were going to tell you when, Daniel. When were you going to tell me? After you redecorated his bedroom, too. After you threw out the last pieces of him that I have left. My voice broke on that last part just slightly. Just enough. Daniel's face reddened. Mom, that's not fair. We just needed space. You weren't even using this place because it's sacred ground, Daniel. The words came out louder than I intended. Your father died in that bedroom upstairs. We scattered his ashes off that balcony. This isn't just real estate. This is where we built our lives. This is where we loved each other. This is where he left this world." Trina sighed along, dramatic, performative sighing, rolled her eyes slightly. "Celeste, you're being a bit dramatic. I mean, it's been 3 years. You can't expect everything to be a museum forever." That sigh, that eye roll, that dismissal, that one moment right there sealed everything. I looked at my son, at the man I'd raised to be better than this, to be stronger, to have more respect. And I saw him standing there, not defending me, not correcting his wife, just looking uncomfortable, like I was the problem, like I was being unreasonable, like I was the one who'd crossed a line. "You know what?" I said quietly. "You're right, Trina. It's been 3 years. Time for me to stop living in the past." I turned and walked toward the door, my heels clicking with finality on Louise's hardwood floor. "Mom, wait," Daniel started, but I didn't wait. I walked out of that house, my house, without looking back. James saw my face and immediately opened the car door. "Take me home," I said, my voice shaking now that I was alone. "Yes, ma'am." As we pulled away, I looked back once through the rear window. The house, my beautiful house, the one Louis and I had poured our souls into, looked like a stranger wearing familiar clothes. But not for long, Dot. Oh, not for long. I didn't cry on the drive home. I sat in the back seat of James's car, hands folded in my lap, watching the palm trees and shopping centers slide past. And I counted my breaths the way Dr. Patel had taught me: in for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Stay calm, Celeste. Calm hands build empires. When we pulled up to my house on Magnolia Drive, James turned in his seat. "Miss Celeste, you need anything?" "I can stay if no, James. Thank you. I'll be fine." "You sure?" I met his eyes in the mirror and saw genuine concern there. "I'm sure. Go home to your wife. I'll call you if I need you." He hesitated, then nodded. "All right. But you call me, you hear, anytime, day or night." "I hear you." I went inside, set my purse on the entryway table, the one Louis had refinished from a yard sale find in 1981, and walked straight to my study. My study was my sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with architecture, books, novels, biographies, poetry. My old drafting table in the corner, still set up the way I'd left it in 1999 when I officially retired. File cabinets. A wall of framed awards and photographs. There was Louis and me at 30, standing in front of our first completed building, his arm around my waist. Both of us beaming like we'd conquered the world. Louis and me at 50. At some award ceremony, him in a tuxedo that made him look like Denzel Washington. Me in a gold dress that made me feel like Diana Ross. Louis and me sitting on the beach house veranda at sunset, his head on my shoulder. Both of us gray-haired and wrinkled and more in love than we'd been at 20 DOT. I poured myself a glass of Merlot, nice one, from a vineyard in Napa Louis and I had visited on our 40th anniversary, and sat at my desk. Then I did what I'd always done when the world tried to box me in. I planned C. People had been underestimating me my whole life. A black woman in architecture in 1967. I wasn't supposed to succeed. I was supposed to be a secretary, a teacher maybe, definitely someone else's assistant. But I didn't accept that script. I built empires instead. Not by being loud or aggressive, but by being smart. By reading every contract 3 times. By keeping meticulous records. By understanding the law better than most lawyers. By protecting what was mine with systems and structures and foresight. Louis and I had built the Morrow and Morrow architecture firm from nothing. Over 50 years, we designed and built 15 properties along the Florida coast. Half the beachfront homes in Palm Bay bore our fingerprints. We'd made millions, not the kind of money that made headlines, but the kind that bought security, freedom, legacy. And we'd been careful, so careful. Every single property was held in my name, structured through a web of trusts and LLCs for tax protection, asset protection, and inheritance planning. Louis had insisted on it after a colleague lost everything in a lawsuit. "Baby," he'd said, sitting at this very desk in 1975. Reading through incorporation documents with his reading glasses sliding down his nose, we build things that last. That means protecting them from every angle: legal, financial, generational. So we've created trusts. Foundations. Structures within structures. Like architectural supports you couldn't see but that held up the whole building. Daniel knew I owned property. He knew I had money. But he didn't know how I owned it. He'd never bothered to ask, never shown interest in the business side. Had gotten his MBA, gone into corporate consulting, made his own money, lived his own life, which meant he had no idea what he'd just stepped into. The beach house officially registered as 4277 Ocean Boulevard. Palm Bay FL wasn't just in my name. It was held by something called the Morrow Ocean Conservation Trust. Louis and I had created it in 1995, inspired by a conversation we'd had with an environmental lawyer at a dinner party. The trust was designed to eventually preserve coastal land, to protect the beaches we loved from overdevelopment, to leave something meaningful behind. We'd transferred the beach house into the trust, along with 2 other coastal properties, and I'd been named the sole trustee. It was a registered 501c3 nonprofit, legitimate, legal, but dormant for years after. Louis died. I'd been too grief-stricken to think about it until now. I opened my laptop cheese at 80. I was more tech-savvy than my son. A fact that would have made Louis Lafond pulled up the trust documents I'd scanned years ago. There it was. The deed, the incorporation papers, my signature. Louis's signature, Daniel's name appeared nowhere. He wasn't a beneficiary, wasn't listed as anything, which meant, legally, he'd moved into a house owned by a nonprofit foundation. Without permission, without authorization, which meant he was trespassing. I took a sip of wine and felt, something cold and clear settle in my chest. Not anger. Anger was hot and cloudy and made you make mistakes. This was something else. Strategy.I picked up my phone and called Martin Chen. Martin had been our attorney for 35 years. He was 70 now, semi-retired, but still sharp as a knife. He answered on the 3rd ring. Celeste, how are you? Haven't heard from you in months? I'm well, Martin. How's Ruth? Driving me crazy, as usual. Says retirement is wasted on old men who don't know how to relax. He chuckled. What can I do for you? I need to activate the Morrow Ocean Conservation Trust. There was a pause, the kind of pause lawyers make when they're rapidly calculating implications. Celeste, that trust hasn't been touched in a decade. What's going on? I told him. All of it. The text. The house. The locks. The paintings in storage. Trina's eye roll. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. So your son moved into a house that's technically owned by a nonprofit foundation. Without permission. That's correct. And changed the locks. Yes. And removed and stored assets that belong to the trust. Yes. Another pause. I could almost hear the gears turning in his lawyer brain. Celeste, you know what this means legally, right? Yes, Martin. It means he's trespassing. It means he's illegally occupying property owned by a registered nonprofit. It means I, as trustee, have every legal right to remove him. You could have him arrested. I don't want him arrested. I want him removed. I want him to understand what he's done. A longer pause. Then, are you sure about this? He's your son. I'm sure this will damage your relationship. It's already damaged Martin. He just doesn't know it yet. I heard him sigh, but it wasn't disapproval. It was understanding. Martin had known Louis. He'd drawn up our wills, our trusts, our business contracts. He'd seen us build everything from nothing. He understood what that house meant. Right? He said finally. Give me 48 hours. I'll prepare the documentation, file the necessary paperwork, and arrange for law enforcement assistance if you need it. Thank you, Martin. Celeste. Yes, Louis would be proud of you. My eyes stung. I hope so. The next 48 hours moved slowly and quickly at the same time. I went about my life, Had lunch with my book club on Tuesday. We were reading Toni Morrison's Paradise. And the discussion got heated in the best way. Went to my doctor's appointment on Wednesday. Blood pressure slightly elevated. But Dr. Patel said that was normal, given my age. Had dinner with my sister Diane on Wednesday night. "You're too quiet," Diane said, watching me push pasta around my plate at her house. "What's wrong?" Diane was 3 years younger than me, a retired school teacher with salt and pepper lokes and eyes that missed nothing. "Nothing's wrong, Celeste Josephine Barrett Morrow. I have known you for 77 years. Don't you dare lie to me." So I told her. Not everything, but enough. When I finished, she sat back in her chair, arms crossed. "That boy has lost his mind. He's learning from his wife. Don't make excuses for him. He's 52 years old. He knows better." She leaned forward. "What are you going to do?" "Handle it, Celeste?" "I'm handling it, Diane." She studied my face, then nodded slowly. "You've got that look." "What look?" "That look you used to get before you won awards. That look you had when you got accepted to Georgia Tech and Daddy said women couldn't be architects. That look Louis Love said it meant you were about to prove everybody wrong." I smiled despite myself. "Did he say that?" "All the time. He'd see that look on your face and tell me, Dee, stand back. Celeste's about to build something." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "You need help?" Diane asked finally. "No, but thank you." "You sure?" "I'm sure." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Okay, but when this is over, I want to hear every detail. It'll be my first call." On Thursday morning, Martin called. "It's done," he said. "The trust is officially activated. The beach house is registered as trust property. I filed all the necessary documentation with the county. You are the legal trustee with full authority, and Daniel. As of right now, he and his wife are occupying property without authorization. We can proceed with formal eviction proceedings, or," he paused, "or we can handle this more directly." "Directly how?" "Sheriff's escort. Eviction notice served in person. They'd have 48 hours to vacate. It's faster, cleaner, and sends a clear message." My heart was pounding. "Set it up. You're absolutely sure?" "I'm sure." "All right. I'll coordinate with the Palm Bay Sheriff's Department. I'm also sending Gerald Pittsy, still on the trust board, technically. He can serve as the official representative and explain the legal situation." Gerald Pitts. I'd forgotten about Gerald. He'd worked with Louis for 20 years. A good man with impeccable integrity. He'd understand. That's perfect. "When do you want to do this?" I thought about it. Friday. Give them time to be comfortable, to really settle in. Let them think they'd gotten away with it. It's Friday afternoon. 2:00. I'll arrange it. "Celeste?" "Yes." "What you're doing? It's not just legal. It's right. Thank you, Martin." After I hung up, I sat in my study for a long time looking at the photographs on my wall. Louis at 30. His smile full of dreams. Louis at 50. His eyes full of wisdom. Louis at 77. Just months before he died, his hand in mine, both of us watching a sunset that seemed to last forever. "I hope I'm doing the right thing." "Baby," I whispered to his photograph. The afternoon light shifted, catching the glass at just the right angle, and for a moment it looked like he was smiling at me. On Friday morning, I got dressed with the same care I'd used before every important meeting of my career. I chose a white linen suit Armani, tailored perfectly to my frame. Pearl earrings Louis had given me for our 25th anniversary. The Hermes scarf from Paris. My favorite crocodile skin heels. The ones that made me feel 6 feet tall, even though I was 5-foot-4. I did my makeup carefully. Foundation to even out my skin. A touch of bronzer, lipstick in a shade called Power. I looked in the mirror and saw Celeste Morrow at 80, elegant. Composed, absolutely unbothered. "Let's go." "James," I said when he arrived at 1:30. Yes." "Ma'am?" he replied, and I caught the faintest smile on his face. He knew. He always knew. The drive to Palm Bay was quiet again. No music this time. Just the sound of the road beneath us and my own steady breathing. As we got close, I saw two sheriff's vehicles parked down the block from the beach house. Martin's black Mercedes, Gerald's silver sedan. Everything was in place. James parked in front of the house. Through the windows, I could see movement, hear music. They were having another party, it seemed. Thursday night into Friday, living their best life in my sanctuary. Not for much longer, I stepped out of the car. The ocean breeze caught my scarf, and I adjusted it with steady hands. The officers approached a young man and woman, both in crisp uniforms, both professional. "Mrs. Morrow?" the woman asked. "That's correct. I'm Officer Rodriguez. This is Officer Williams. We've reviewed the documentation your attorney provided. Everything is in order. We'll follow your lead. Thank you, officer." Martin emerged from his Mercedes, briefcase in hand, looking every bit the distinguished attorney in his gray suit. Behind him came Gerald Pitts, 75 now, white-haired but still commanding, wearing a navy blazer and carrying a leather folder. "Celeste," Gerald said warmly, taking my hand. "I'm sorry it's come to this, so am I, but here we are." "Louis would understand," he said quietly. "He'd understand completely." We walked up the path together, me in front, the officers flanking me, Martin and Gerald behind. A small delegation of justice moving with quiet purpose. I rang the doorbell. My doorbell. On my door. It took a moment. I could hear scrambling inside, voices, someone saying, "Who the hell is that?" Then the door opened. And there was Daniel. He was wearing board shorts and a t-shirt that said "Beach, please" in faded letters. His hair was messy, his feet bare. He had a beer in one hand. When he saw me, all of us, his face went from confusion to shock to something like fear. In about 3 seconds, "Mom, what's going on?" "May I come in?" I asked, my voice smooth as silk. He stepped aside and we entered. All of us, the officers, Martin, Gerald, me, Trina, appeared from the kitchen. Wine glass in hand, wearing a bikini top and denim shorts. Two couples I didn't recognize were sprawled on my furniture. Drinks and phones in hand. When Trina saw the uniforms, her face went white. The wine glass trembled in her hand. "What the hell is this?" she hissed. I walked into the center of the living room, my living room, and turned to face them all. The afternoon light streamed through the windows. Louis had positioned perfectly to catch this exact angle of sun. "Daniel." "Trina," I said calmly, "I'd like you to meet Mr. Gerald Pitts, trustee for the Morrow Ocean Conservation Trust." Gerald stepped forward and opened his leather folder. "Mr. and Mrs. Hartman, my name is Gerald Pitts. I'm here in my capacity as representative of the Morrow Ocean Conservation Trust, a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization." His voice was formal, legal, leaving no room for argument. "As of 3 days ago, this property, 4277 Ocean Boulevard, officially belongs to the trust. It has belonged to the trust, in fact, since 1995. Daniel's mouth opened and closed. "That's Mom. That's insane. This is your house." "No, Daniel," I said quietly. "It's the trust's house, and it has been for 30 years. You just never bothered to ask. But you always said I said it was mine, and it is mine to manage as trustee. But it's not mine to give away. It belongs to a foundation your father and I created to preserve coastal land. It was always meant to be protected, sacred." Trina's face had gone from white to red. "You're seriously doing this? Over what, some old furniture? Because I hurt your feelings?" I turned to her slowly. "No, Trina, I'm doing this because you and my son moved into property you don't own, without permission, and changed the locks. That's called trespassing." Officer Rodriguez stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Hartman, you are currently occupying property belonging to a registered nonprofit organization without authorization. Mrs. Morrow, as trustee, has requested your removal." Removal. Daniel's voice cracked. "Mom, you can't be serious." "I'm very serious." "But We're family. Family asks permission, Daniel. Family shows respect. Family doesn't move into someone's home and paint over their memories like they never mattered. Officer Williams pulled out a document. This is an official eviction notice. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises. If you refuse, we will proceed with formal removal and you could face criminal trespassing charges. One of Trina's friends stood up, grabbing her purse. We should go, she muttered. The other couple followed, slipping out the door without a word. Their party mood evaporated. Trina's face was twisted with fury now. This is insane. Daniel, say something. She can't do this. But Daniel was staring at me, and in his eyes I saw it finally understanding. Shame, the realization of what he'd done. Actually, ma'am, Martin said smoothly, she can. And she has. The law is quite clear on this matter. Trina slammed her wineglass down on the counter. My counter, and it shattered. Red wine and glass exploded across the marble. Fine. She shouted, fine. We'll leave. But don't expect us to ever speak to you again, Celeste. You're a bitter, lonely old woman who can't let go of the past. The room went silent. I looked at Hurley, looked at her. This woman-child who thought volume was power, who thought entitlement was strength, who thought she could erase my history because it inconvenienced her aesthetic. You know what, Trina? I said softly. You're right. I am old. I'm 80 years old. And you know what I've learned in those 80 years? That people who don't respect the past have no foundation for the future. That people who take without asking eventually lose everything. That real power isn't volume mitts, knowing exactly who you are and what you've built, and refusing to let anyone diminish it. I walked to the balcony doors and opened them. The ocean breeze swept in, carrying the scent of salt and freedom. This house, I continued, my back to them, looking out at the water, was built by two people who loved each other more than anything, who built a business from nothing, who fought racism and sexism and every barrier this world threw at them, who raised a son and hoped he'd understand the value of what they'd built. I turned back to Daniel. Your father died in that bedroom upstairs, Daniel. In my arms. His last words to me were about strength, about legacy, about never letting anyone take what we'd built together. Daniel's eyes were wet now. Mom, I scattered his ashes from that balcony at sunrise, I said, my voice breaking just slightly. I stood right there and I let him go into the ocean he loved, and I promised him I would protect what we'd built. All of it. The business. The buildings. The memories. This house. I walked toward him slowly. And you, who I carried for 9 months, who I raised, who I sacrificed everything to give a better life, you walked in here like it was nothing. Like 43 years of history was just old stuff to put in storage. I didn't think he started. No, I said firmly. You didn't think? That's the problem. Officer Rodriguez cleared her throat gently. Mrs. Morrow, we can leave the notice and give them privacy too. No, I said. I want to say this. I need to say this. I looked at my son, at the man who had Louise's eyes, and my stubbornness and his own complicated journey. I love you, Daniel. I will always love you. But love doesn't mean letting you disrespect me. Love doesn't mean pretending this didn't happen. You moved into this house without asking. You changed the locks. You removed your father's art. You let your wife call his legacy old stuff. And when I confronted you, you told me not to make it a thing, Mom. I'm sorry you have 48 hours, I said quietly. Take your things. Leave the keys. And when you're ready to have a real conversation about respect and family, and what it means to honor the people who came before you, call me. I'll be at my house. The one I actually live in. Turn to Gerald. Please document everything. I want an inventory of what was removed from the house. I want it all returned. Of course, Celeste. I turned to Martin. Make sure everything is legally airtight. I don't want any confusion. Already done. I turned to the officers. Thank you for your time. Ma'am, Officer Rodriguez said with a nod that held something like respect. Then I walked out. Heels clicking on Louis's hardwood floor one more time. Out the door. Down the stone path. To the car where James waited. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Behind me. I heard Trina's voice shrill, "I can't believe," and Daniel's voice. Broken? Stop. Just ... stop. James opened the car door. I settled into the back seat, adjusted my scarf, and took a deep breath. "Home, Miss Celeste?" James asked gently. "Not yet," I said. "Drive along the coast for a while. I need to look at the ocean." "Yes, ma'am." We drove slowly along Ocean Boulevard, and I watched the Atlantic shimmer in the afternoon sun. Watched the waves that had witnessed Louis's proposal. Our honeymoon, our anniversaries, our dreams. His death dot waves that kept coming, no matter what. Steady, relentless, powerful like me. The next 48 hours were strange. I went home and tried to resume normal life. I watered my garden. I read my book. I made myself eat even though I had no appetite. Diane called 3 times, but I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to talk yet. James checked on me twice, bringing groceries I hadn't asked for and flowers that brightened my kitchen table. "You doing okay, Miss Celeste?" he asked. "I'm doing what needs to be done," I replied. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. That's all any of us can do. On Saturday evening, my phone rang. Daniel. I stared at his name on the screen, my thumb hovering over the answer button. I let it ring. He called again 10 minutes later. I didn't answer. He texted, "Mom, please. We need to talk." I didn't respond. On Sunday morning, I drove myself to church, something I hadn't done in months. James had offered, but I needed to do this alone. I sat in the back pew of Mount Zion Baptist Church, the church where Louis and I had been married 55 years ago. The church was half empty on this Sunday. It usually was these days. But Pastor Williams, 78 and still preaching like he was 40, gave a sermon about forgiveness and boundaries. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting," he said, his voice ringing through the sanctuary. "Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. Jesus forgave, yes. But he also turned over tables when people disrespected sacred space." I sat in that pew, Louis's wedding ring on a chain around my neck, and I cried quietly into a tissue I pulled from my purse. After the service, Pastor Williams found me. "Sister Celeste," he said warmly, taking my hands. "Haven't seen you in a while. I've been dealing with some things I heard." In a church this size, everybody heard everything. "How you holding up?" "I'm standing," I said. "That's something. That's everything," he corrected gently. "Louis would be proud of you, you know." People keep saying that, because it's true. That man loved your strength. Said you were the strongest thing he ever built. He smiled. Used to say you were made of steel wrapped in silk. I laughed despite myself. He said that all the time. Said you were soft where it mattered and strong where it counted. We talked for a few more minutes, and when I left, I felt lighter somehow. Not happy, but lighter. By Sunday evening, I knew it was time to return to the beach house. I called James. "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. The beach house." "Yes, ma'am." I called Martin. "Has there been any contact?" Daniel's attorney called me. Martin said, "They're not contesting the eviction. They've agreed to be out by Monday morning." His attorney, young guy from his wife's family, probably thought he could intimidate me. Martin chuckled. He learned otherwise. "Good, Celeste. Daniel wants to talk to you." "I know. He's called 6 times. Are you going to respond?" "When I'm ready." Monday morning was clear and cool. I dressed simply, this time linen pants, a silk blouse, comfortable shoes. This wasn't about performance. This was about reclamation. When we arrived at the beach house, it was quiet. 2 moving trucks were parked in the driveway, and I could see movers carrying furniture out. Daniel's car was there. Trina's Mercedes was gone. I walked up the path slowly. The front door was open. Inside, the house was in chaos, boxes everywhere. Furniture halfway out. The evidence of a hasty departure. And there, in the middle of it all, was Daniel, He was wearing jeans and an old college sweatshirt. His hair uncombed, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. When he saw me, he froze. Mom, Daniel. We stood there 10 feet apart. A lifetime of love and disappointment between us. The movers should be done in a few hours, he said quietly. We've gotten everything out. Trina went back to the condo. She didn't want to see you, I'm sure. He ran his hand through his hair. Mom, I don't even know where to start. How about at the beginning? With, I'm sorry I moved into your house without asking. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Mom. I thought, God, I don't know what I thought. Trina kept saying the house was just sitting there, that you'd never use it again, that it was a waste. And I went along with it. I didn't think. No, you didn't. I didn't think about what it meant to you. About Dad, about everything you built together. I just thought about it as property, as something that wasn't being used. I was so stupid. I walked farther into the room, looking around at the emptiness. The movers had already taken most of the furniture they brought. My house was starting to look like itself, again vacant. Yes, but itself. Where are your father's paintings? I asked in storage. I have the key. I'll bring them back personally. Every single piece. And the furniture. Most of it's at the storage unit too. The Persian rug, the record player, the Eames chairs, all of it. I swear, Mom, nothing was sold or thrown away. I wouldn't let Trina do that. But you let her call it old stuff. He closed his eyes. I know. I should have defended it. Defended you. Defended Dad's memory. I've been so caught up in keeping the peace with her that I forgot who I was supposed to be. I walked to the window and looked out at the ocean. Your father used to say that the ocean teaches you about consistency. Every day the waves come. Every day the tide turns. It doesn't matter if it's convenient or comfortable, the ocean does what it's meant to do. I remember him saying that. He meant that you have to be consistent in your values, Daniel. In who you are. You can't let other people, not even people you love, make you compromise the core of who you're supposed to be. I know that now. I turned to face him. Do you? Because this isn't just about the house, Daniel. This is about respect. About understanding that I'm not just your mother, I'm a person who built a life. Who earned everything I have. Who deserves to be consulted about decisions that affect things I own. You're right. You're absolutely right. I'm 80 years old, I said, and my voice trembled slightly. I've spent my entire life proving I deserve space in rooms that didn't want me. I fought to become an architect when people said Black women couldn't do it. I built a business with your father when banks wouldn't loan to us. I designed buildings that still stand today, buildings that will outlive me. And through all of that, I never let anyone make me feel small. Tears were streaming down Daniel's face now. I made you feel small. Yes, I said simply. You did. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. We stood in silence for a long moment. A mover walked past carrying a box, glancing at us nervously before hurrying out. Where's Trina? I asked finally. Daniel's jaw tightened. We're taking some space. She's staying with her sister. We need to figure some things out, I see. She doesn't understand why you did what you did. She thinks you were cruel. And what do you think? He looked at Mirali, looked at me, Aunt. I saw Louis in his eyes. The honesty. The capacity for growth. I think you showed me exactly who I'd become, he said quietly. And I didn't like what I saw. I walked toward him slowly. Daniel, I love you. I've loved you since the moment I knew you existed. But love doesn't mean acceptance of disrespect. It means holding people accountable to be their best selves. I know. Your father would be disappointed. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I know that too. But, I continued, reaching out to touch his arm, he'd also be proud that you're standing here admitting it. That you're taking responsibility. Louis always said mistakes don't define you, how you handle them does. Daniel pulled me into a hug, sudden and tight and desperate. I felt his body shake with sobs against my shoulder. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I'll do better. I swear I'll do better. I held my son the way I'd held him when he was 5 and had skinned his knee. When he was 15 and his girlfriend had broken his heart. When he was 25 and Louis had been diagnosed with cancer. I know you will, I said softly. I know. We stood there for a long time, holding each other in the empty house where so many memories lived. Finally, Daniel pulled back, wiping his eyes. What happens now? Now, I said, you finish moving out. You return everything that belongs here. And when you're ready, when you've thought about what family really means, you call me, and we start rebuilding. Not the house, us. Can we do that? We're Morrows, Daniel. We know how to build things that last. He laughed a wet. Broken sounded nodded. I reached into my purse and pulled out something I'd been carrying since Friday. A small object wrapped in tissue paper. Here, I said, handing it to him. He unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a seashell, white and smooth, shaped like a tiny spiral. The one Louis had found on this beach 55 years ago. The one he'd given me when he proposed. Daniel stared at it, tears starting again. Your father found this right out there, I said, pointing toward the beach. The day he asked me to marry him. He said, Celeste, this shell survives storms and tides in time. That's what real love does. It endures, Mom. I can't take this. You can, I said firmly. Keep it. Look at it when you need to remember what matters. What endures? What's worth protecting? He closed his fingers around the shell, holding it like it was made of glass. Thank you, he whispered. You're welcome. I kissed his forehead, the way I used to when he was small, and walked toward the door. Mom. He called. I turned. I love you. I love you too, baby. Always have. Always will. 2 weeks later, the beach house was mine again. Daniel had personally returned every single item, the paintings, the furniture, the rugs, the books, even the vintage records. He'd spent 3 days putting everything back exactly where it belonged, working with a careful reverence that reminded me of Louis. I didn't supervise. I let him do it alone. This was his penance, his prayer, his way of apologizing to his father's memory. When he was done, he called me. It's ready, he said. Whenever you want to see it. I drove down on a Saturday afternoon in late November. The beach was quieter this time of year, just a few walkers, some seagulls. The eternal rhythm of waves. When I walked in, I gasped. It was perfect. Every painting in its place. Every piece of furniture exactly where Louis and I had put it. The Bearden above the mantel. The Lawrence by the piano. The catlet in the hallway. The Eames chairs angled just right toward the window. The Persian rug centered perfectly. Even the record player was set up. Coltrane album waiting on the turntable. Daniel stood in the corner, watching me nervously. Is it? Is it okay? I walked through slowly, touching surfaces, looking at details, feeling the house breathe again. It's perfect, I whispered. He exhaled in relief. I walked to the balcony doors and opened them. The ocean breeze swept in, carrying salt and memories and hope. I stood there for a long time, just breathing, just being. Finally, I turned back to Daniel. Thank you. It's the least I could do. How are you? I asked. Really? He shrugged. It's taking it day by day. Trina and I are in counseling. I don't know if we'll make it, honestly. We want different things. We value different things. I'm sorry. Don't be. This was necessary. I needed to see who I'd become, who she was bringing out in me. We sat on the veranda together, watching the waves. James had brought a picnic basket. He'd thought of everything, and we shared sandwiches and lemonade in comfortable silence. Mom, Daniel said after a while, can I ask you something? Course. When Dad was dying, what did he say? I know he talked about you being strong, but what else? I took a breath, remembering those final hours. Louis in our bed, his body frail but his eyes still sharp, holding my hand with what little strength he had left. He said he was proud of the life we'd built, I said softly. He said he had no regrets, except that he wouldn't get to grow old with me. And he said, my voice caught, He said, "Celeste, you're the best thing I ever built." Everything else was just practice. Daniel's eyes filled with tears, and then he said, "Take care of our boy. Make sure he knows what matters." "What matters?" Daniel whispered. "Love," I said. "Respect. Legacy. Understanding that what we build in this world, the relationships, the integrity, the values, those are the things that outlast us. Buildings crumble eventually, but how we treat people, how we honor our promises, how we respect what came before us, that's what endures." Daniel nodded, looking out at the ocean. "I'm going to do better, Mom. I promise." "I know you will." We sat until the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. The same sunset Louis and I had watched hundreds of times from this exact spot. "I should go," Daniel said finally. "Let you have this place to yourself." "Stay," I said. "Just a little longer." So we stayed, mother and son, watching the day end and the stars begin to appear. And somewhere in the space between us, I felt Louis's presence warm and proud and eternal. 3 months later, on a crisp February morning, I opened the beach house to visitors for the first time. Not tenants, visitors. I'd worked with Gerald and Martin to establish a formal program through the Morrow Ocean Conservation Trust. The beach house would now serve as a retreat for artists, architects, and environmental scientists, people who needed time and space to create, to think, to dream. They could stay for 2 weeks at a time, free of charge. All we asked was that they respect the space, understand its history, and maybe if they were moved to contribute something back, a painting, a piece of music, it's an idea. The first resident was a young Black woman named Aria, 28, a marine biologist studying coastal erosion. When she walked in and saw the Bearden paintings, the Lawrence prints, the Catlett sculpture, her eyes went wide. "Mrs. Morrow?" she breathed. This is incredible. "Thank you, dear. Make yourself at home. The desk in the upstairs bedroom has the best light if you need to work." "Thank you. Thank you so much." I showed her around, told her about Louis, about the house, about why it mattered that spaces like this exist. Spaces where Black folks could create and think, and be without having to prove they belonged. When I left, she was standing on the balcony looking out at the ocean with tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she called after me. "You have no idea what this means." But I did know. I knew exactly what it meant. Daniel and I had dinner every Sunday now. Sometimes at my house, sometimes at his apartment. He and Trina had separated, though they were trying to remain friends. Sometimes we drove to the beach house and cooked together, talking about Louis, about the business, about life. Slowly, carefully, we were rebuilding. One Sunday in March, as we sat on the veranda watching the sunset, Daniel handed me a small box. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a bracelet, delicate silver links with a single charm. The charm was a tiny seashell. "I had it made," Daniel said. "So you'd always have Dad's shell, but also so I could keep the original. To remember, to do better." I put the bracelet on and it caught the light perfectly. "It's beautiful, Daniel." "I love you, Mom, and I'm sorry I'll probably say that for the rest of my life." "I love you too, baby, and I forgive you. Not because you're perfect, but because forgiveness is how we build our way forward." We sat in silence as the sun melted into the ocean, turning the water gold. "You know," Daniel said after a while, "Dad really did build something incredible with this house." "We both did," I corrected gently. "You both did," he agreed. "And now it's going to help so many people. That's a real legacy. It's the only kind worth having." As the stars began to appear, I felt Louis's presence again in the wind, in the waves, in the quiet satisfaction of knowing we'd built something that would last, something that would endure, just like he'd promised. 6 months later, I received a letter. It was from Aria, the marine biologist who'd been our first resident. She'd published a groundbreaking paper on coastal restoration, and in the acknowledgments, she'd written this: "Work was completed during a residency at the Morrow Ocean Conservation Trust Beach House in Palm Bay, Florida. My deepest gratitude to Celeste Morrow's generosity and vision created a space where Black scientists can dream without barriers. In that house, surrounded by art and history and the wisdom of those who came before, I found not just focus, but belonging. May we all build legacies as enduring as the one she and Louis Morrow created. I sat in my garden reading those words over and over, tears streaming down my face. "We did it, baby," I whispered to Louis's memory. "We really did it." And somewhere in the lavender-scented air, I felt him smile. On a warm October morning, 18 months after that Sunday text message, I sat on the veranda of the beach house with Diane, both of us sipping coffee and watching dolphins play in the surf. "You ever regret how you handled it?" Diane asked. "With Daniel? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No," I said finally. "I don't. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that he hurt me. Okay. But I don't regret standing up for myself, for Louis's memory, for what we built." "He's doing better," Diane observed. "I ran into him at the grocery store last week. He looks lighter somehow." "He is. We both are." A young couple, the current residents, both architects from Atlantic, came out onto the beach, laughing, carrying sketchbooks and cameras. "This place is magic." "Mrs. Moreau?" The woman called up to me. "Thank you again." I waved back, smiling. Diane watched them walk down to the water. "Louis would love this. He does," I said softly. "I feel him here all the time." We sat in comfortable silence, two sisters, who'd survived 8 decades together, watching the ocean do what it had always done endure. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Dinner tonight? I'm making Dad's famous jambalaya. Or trying to." I smiled and texted back, "I'll bring dessert and my appetite." 3 dots appeared. Then, "Love you, Mom. Love you too, baby. Always." I set my phone down and picked up my coffee, breathing in the salt air, feeling the sun on my face. Celeste Josephine Morrow, 81 years old, still standing, still building, still teaching the world what it means to be strong and soft at the same time, still honoring the man who'd built his life with her. Brick by brick, dream by dream, still guarding what was sacred, and I would keep guarding it, this house. Its legacy, this truth about respect and love, and the enduring power of knowing exactly who you are until the ocean's self stopped coming to shore. Which is to say, forever.